announcement is that we have tons of exits. Yeah, this place is probably is probably built to have a lot of escape routes. So we have one right here for accessibility, and there's another one to my left. Then far my left, there's another exit point, and then far to my right, there's another exit point. Then there is extra emergency exits just at the corners to the left and to the right. So just in case you need to use the restroom, it is downstairs. So you just go outside the hall and go downstairs. I'm sure you all know this already. You've been here for a while. So, all right. Once again, a round of applause to yourselves and to the organizers of the event. All right. Okay. So right now we are kicking off and we are calling on the chair or one of the chairs himself to come give us the welcome speech and welcome us properly to PyCon Africa 2024. Please join me as I welcome Manny Young.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, so I think we're kind of having a slow start, but I believe as we move on, things will increase. So I want to welcome everyone to PyCon Africa 2024. This is more of like a comeback. Um, so just to give a little bit of highlight, so we had a first PyCon in 2019, and that was hosted here in Accra, Ghana. And we were to then have it again. So the whole idea was to have PyCon Africa twice in a location, then move to another place. But in 2020, as we all know, the pandemic um, happened, and we then had to move it online. And after that, PyCon Africa, most of us on on the organizing team kind of were a little bit engaged. So we had it 2019, we had it 2020 online, and we are now having the comeback in 2024. Um, why Ghana again? So some people were wondering that, oh, why is it in Ghana again? So we didn't supposed to host it in Ghana. We're supposed to move to another country in Africa. But during the time when planning, we noticed that the timing, first of all, when we started things, and we said, okay, fine, this time we're going to work to have a sustained plan. And if you all noticed, we announced not just that of 2024, we announced that of 2025 and 2026. So this year we are having the comeback here in Accra, Ghana. Next year we'll be moving to South Africa, and the next year, that is 2025, we will be moving to Uganda. So can we put our hands together for the Python community across Africa? Great. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Manny Young. I'm actually a software engineer, director with Talent Co-op, and also a co-founder of Python Ghana. I would also want to say a big, huge thanks to also the organizing team that I've been working with. So this year we tried of having something different. So we have the IOC, who are the International Organizing Committee, and then we have the LOC, who are the Local Organizing Committee, and we also have our volunteers who also have been really, really helpful. Tomorrow, actually, I'll give a better presentation for this, but please let's just put our hands together for all those who are trying to make this possible, who are giving their time. Yeah. And also, we won't continue this or we won't be here if we don't thank our sponsors. I'm just trying to be fast so that we can actually catch up to time. We're supposed to start by 9. So we have our headline sponsor, the PSF, and we are really, really, really excited to have the director here with us, the executive director. Yeah, then we also have Open AI. They would have loved to be here, but they had actually a conference just this same month in Senegal. But they really send their regards, and hopefully, maybe in the future, they will be around. We have Hopper Foundation. We also have Fido. I believe they are represented here today. We have Tentable. We have Google. And then we have other sponsors too who also contributed to the conference, such as Black Dev, Real Python. We also then have Men in Black. And please, in case I missed, please, tomorrow we would have the full presentation of all the sponsors, but we can see them here. These are the main sponsors that actually are highlighted here. Then the next point is I would like to then talk about the keynote speakers that we have this year. So I'll start from the one who was speaking this morning. So we have him here, Samson Gordy, actually the co-founder of the Oscar, which is the open source community in Africa. So Samson, can you wave? Yeah, nice to have you here. Then we also have David Metz here too as well. He's also will be a keynote speaker, but he'll be speaking tomorrow. We have, I spoke already about the executive director, Deb Nicholson, who is also here. Then we have Marlene. Marlene would have loved, or she would have been here, but I think towards the conference period, I think she had an engagement at her workplace. So tomorrow she'll be speaking, but she'll be speaking virtually. So once again, I want to say thank you for being here. I want to say Akwaba, which is basically welcome to Ghana. And please, I hope you all have a great time. So for the schedule, PyCon Africa was divided into different days. So yesterday and the day before yesterday was just basically the workshop days. Today and tomorrow are supposed to be the main conference days. Then Saturday will be the day for the sprints. Um, I know the day before yesterday we had the numbers. Yesterday we had the numbers. Today I think the number is actually, yeah, we're actually increasing. This year we had a cap of 350 people. Unfortunately, we are in a hall of about 850. That takes 850. So I think, yeah, would manage. So once again, thank you for being here. We have the FIDO guys that are represented here. Um, thank you for coming. We also have those from 10 Table 2 as well, who also are here. Um, the Python community also here, which is everyone. So let's put our hands together for ourselves. Yeah. So sorry for actually making this a little bit too fast. Tomorrow, I believe we would keep to time and would have a better presentation. So I'll be handing over back to Bami to bring the keynote speaker. Can we put our hands together for Bami? She's wearing green. She's representing Ninja.
Yeah, we have to represent. Okay, thank you very much. Please, once again, a round of applause for Manny and the entire organizing team for putting this together. Thank you so much. All right, so before we call the first keynote speaker, yeah, you're gonna do something for me. You're going to move um either to your neighbor or anyone, take a selfie. Do we have the hashtag, please? Stancy, do we have the hashtags? So take a selfie, please. Let people know you're here already. Send words to your other friends and your community members that are not here that we have started. So take a selfie, post on your socials, and just say nice stuff. Okay, take selfie, please. Thank you. Meet new people in the process, and take selfie. All right. So I'm going to give us like about 2 to 3 minutes for us to get that done before we call our first keynote speaker for this conference. Are we taking the selfie? It's my phone. We are not. We're not doing it well. I know the I know the hall is almost like more than our capacity, but we are going to do a video right now, and you are going to scream Python Africa 2024. All right? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, go. Python Africa 2024. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So you post that and use all the hashtags. I think the hashtag is PyCon Africa 2024 as well. I don't know if there is more. Stancy is supposed to provide that. Okay, so PyCon Africa 2024, that's the hashtag. And also tag the PyCon Africa page. All right about now, we are moving forward and we are going to be calling our first speaker and also our first keynote speaker to open this event. And that is Samson Gode, is a open source program manager at Adara, is the co-founder of Open Source Community Africa, a project that encourages African developers to contribute to open source projects while empowering Africa's open source ecosystem. Programs manager at Edera Ashcraft, board member at Open Source Collective and Sugar Labs. I'm reading his bio, please. Clap. Please clap me. Keep clapping. Thank you. Sugar Labs International, a leader and open source software advocate who is passionate about developer relations and is dedicated to sustaining open source projects while building inclusive community. Please, with a loud and a resounding round of applause, to make welcome. Clapping till he gets here. Thank you. Keep clapping till he gets here. All right. Welcome, Samson. I think you can use that, but in case you want to move around.
Okay, cool. Good morning, Ghana. Why is everybody so quiet? Huh? The tea is making you very weak. Huh? What's happening? So usually, I when I'm speaking, I'm from Nigeria, so also friends with Bami too. So it's a pleasure to be here. This is my second time in Ghana. I think my first was I came for Afro Nation, so it's I came for Afro Nation, and now I'm coming for Tech, which is amazing. So today, first, before I would start, I would say again we should clap for the organizers. I think I made a tweet just yesterday, and I said that a lot of people don't understand the concept of building communities like this until it becomes your responsibility. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. It's like, oh, okay, I can do community, I can host people, give talks, but when you start understanding the logistics that comes with hosting events, flying people from America, getting visas and everything, then you get to appreciate the organizer. So again, if you can stand up a little bit and clap, then we'll start. So please just do that quickly. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So now you know that your lunch is, you understand, is ready. Organizers, take notes. Thank you. Awesome. When they reached out to me, I was like, hey, we want you to come give a talk. To be fair, um, I was talking. Funny enough, myself and Deb, we were in a conference last week at Austria at Open Source Summit, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to figure out what to do and how to give this talk because again, it's been a long time and trying to understand and trying to stay away from a little bit of Ghanaian jollof, so I can give this talk very, very well. I'm not saying again, I did not say anything, so don't drag me on Twitter. Ghanaian jollof is interesting, very interesting. That's it. Uh, okay, great. So the concept of my talk is something that reflects my journey and a lot of my friends, and I think it's a pattern that I started noticing, in the last 10 plus years. And it says from code to community. I know, again, 90% of you here today or identify as a software engineer. Of course, this is PyCon, except you're doing UI UX in Python, which will be weird. Um, but yeah, who knows? Who knows? There might be some great working group that might be focusing on accessibility. But yeah. So again, like I said, why does collaboration matters, beyond screen? I'm not going to go through this again. I think Bami did an amazing work. But the concept here is, I think this sort of reflects on how, again, I started as a software engineer and then now I'm doing more community-based role. And of course, you can, if you like this talk, you can be tweeting live or ask questions. Can do that at Samson underscore Godi. And then LinkedIn, you can, I don't know, follow me if you think you want to see my post or be careful. Okay, so Yeah, like I said, the presentation I'm about to give is sort of, again, it's really really interesting. I don't think I've been in a room very intentional and like sharing how my journey started as a contributor down to becoming a maintainer. And it's not something that a whole lot of people get to say, because people sometimes just contribute one or two pull requests or send in pull requests rather, and then they get merged. And then the next thing they are, I don't know, doing something else. But to stay in the community, to build in the community, to understand the need of the community is something that is very, very, very interesting. How come my slide just dropped? Okay, cool. So first, before I, look into that code, how many of you here has attempted somehow to contribute to an open source project, even if it's your project on GitHub? Yeah. Okay, that's a very interesting crowd. First time hearing the word open source, and what is open source? Raise up your. Don't worry, don't be shy. Just this is a weird. This sounds very Chinese to you right now. Like first time. Okay, okay, we have a very decent crowd. That's good. I said Chinese and then, oh, I'm sorry. Great. So I really love the quotes. If they can show that on the screen, it's from a website called opensource.guide. You should check that out. And it says that contributing to open source can be rewarding, a way for you to learn, to teach, and then to build experience. And why is that important? Is because in Africa, what a whole lot of people don't understand in the global, I don't know, in America, Europe, and other parts of the world, is that majority of the software engineers, especially people I'm seeing here, are on an average under the age of 25. And then when you start looking at job experiences, you're 20, for example, and then the job is asking you for 10 years of experience, you'll be wondering, how is that possible? We used to hear all those sci-fi movies where they say, this kid was coding from childbirth. As soon as they gave birth to this kid, he was writing Java. How many of you, is there some people here that they gave birth to? Oh, you started writing Java from two. Ah, okay, that's amazing. Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, the reason why that is interesting, why the concept of getting experience from a very young age, and then people are like, oh, how do you work? Oh, who hired you when you were two? Who hired you when you were five? It's because open source is open and it enables you to do things that is beyond any organizational structure. And it also gives you the opportunity to work on actual real life examples. And that was kind of how everything started. Looks like my slide crashed. Okay, so we can be rolling. Now, but while we're still trying to figure out my slide, how many of you here have tried to boldly contribute to the Python code base? Don't be shy, don't be shy. No, not anybody here. It's just like, oh, even if it's like you change dots to comma on one of the documentation. Uh, oh no, I see one hand, I see two hands. That's good, that's good. How many of you here have tried to do Hacktoberfest? How many how many times in a row? Who has done Hacktoberfest for more than 4 times in a row? 4 times? Ah, a lot of OGs. Great, great, great. Okay, slides is back. Um, like I said, it is a very interesting way for you to kind of extend the opportunity for you to grow. Now, this is quite interesting because, again, like I said, it's reflecting on a whole lot of stories of the African developers, including myself, even if I don't actively write code anymore. It's because the journey, it seems like literally the way you take a mile step, for you to take a lot of works, you need to wake up and say, oh, okay, is my leg working fast? Before you can, like, start moving around. So that's why I think this quote is really, really interesting. And then as you keep going, you're building your 10 years of experience, 20 years, 5 years. sometimes you keep wondering, oh, what got me started? Sometimes I might be working and I'm like, you know what? Today I'm leaving tech. I'm so tired. And then I'm like, wait, there was something that got me started. I remember as a kid. So it's a question for you all, like, okay, what got, I mean, apart from the money, let's be real. Like, apart from the monetary aspect of it, I'm sure you all have passion for tech, right? Passion. You're passionate about Python. And there's PSF folks here. Are you passionate about Python? Why is the voice low? Or you're not passionate? You know there's lunch coming, right? Are you passionate about Python? No, no, this is not convincing. This is not. Are you passionate about Python? Great, great, great. That's the energy. That's the energy. So it's all about asking yourself the hard question. What got you started? Is it money? Are you trying to do a lot of things? But me, it was quite interesting. A very funny story. That's why I'm here to share it. Hopefully I even remember what happened. Over a decade ago, I was one of the students in Nigeria in some university, oh, not university, because over a decade ago I was not in university, in primary school, and then I got into junior secondary school. I don't know what's the education structure here in Ghana is. How do you call grade? It's secondary school, right? Same thing. That's from JSS1 to SS3. Same thing like Nigeria, right? Okay, that's cool. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So the moment I joined JSS1, I was part of the One Laptop a Child project. Um, yes, I prior to that I had some experience of computing because I went to a very interesting school. But then that was a lot of windows. You know, if you have a house and you get to go into your house through the window, you know your neighbors will think you're weird, right? That was how everything felt when I was using. I mean, not shading anything, right? But that was kind of what was going on because all I needed to understand was how to use a computer in school. It was all about how to use PowerPoint, how to use this, how to write. It was as if they were teaching me how to be a receptionist or the concept of like sitting down and doing other people's job. But again, like I said, the reason why that was, I keep reflecting on my career from the One Laptop per Child side was because the first day I got that computer, I opened it. I was like, what am I looking at? It was so different. I mean, I used to know in school then, right, they used to talk about different operating systems. There's Windows, and then depending on which school you go and your computer science teacher, they might go in detail, or they might just say and others, you know? And I was one of those, I went to the same some of the schools that keep saying and others. And I really did not understand the word or the computing word outside of the traditional computers that we used to know back. Ah, God, I want to say back in the days, but yes, back in the days. And that was kind of how the journey started. Again, like I said, but the interesting thing there wasn't about the hardware. Because hardware, you can today we use Mac OS, we use a lot of things, use your Apple, Windows, Dell, and the rest. But I think the most important thing then was the software or the operating system that the computer at that point was running. And for fun facts, that operating system was, at least from what I understand, was Python dominated. So from the activity to the way you talk to the operating system was 100% written in Python. And that was actually, at that time, a very weird concept. In fact, when I heard the word Python for the first time as a child, trust me, it wasn't the image that you are seeing right now. It was something very, very different. When I Googled it, actually, try not to Google things that you don't. Yeah, I was talking about weird environment. So that was my interface for a very, very, very long time. And that challenged me to kind of understand the concept of computing. You know, when you turn on your computer, you have your, what do you call it, your home, right? Your, um, God, what do you call it? Your home where your icons, everything was placed, right? That was the equivalent of it. Now, the interesting thing there is the fact that the Sugar desktop environment, which is one of the flavor, if you're a Linux user, you have your GNOME, you have your KDE, your what's the which other one again? Are they Linux users here? Apart from people here, let me see. How many of you here use Linux? No, apart from people down here. What's your best distro? Ubuntu. Okay, great. What about you? What's your best distro? Someone raised their hand there. Kali. Why do you like Kali? Why do you like Kali? Anyways, so think of Ubuntu, right? But in that interface, but in every single of that application had some intentionality in education, right? So it was a project from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, specifically the Media Lab, to specifically bring tools that enable kids to think. So, and they intentionally designed it in a way that it will piss you off. Just like today, I think thank God for modern computers. Back then, if you're running Linux, if your sound play, like if you install the what's the word? You install, let's say, Ubuntu. No, no, let's say Debian or something, and then your sound play. Just check. There might be some FBI agent looking at you because it's not possible. It's designed for you to challenge yourself and go to the internet and ask, why is this not working? You spend weeks trying to get something as basic as sound to run on your computer. That was the journey. And like I said, it was powered by Python, PyGTK specifically. I know they've been trying to rewrite a lot of things to a newer library now, but as of when I got the computer, it was based on Python. I'm sorry, the PyGTK in terms of writing apps and the likes. And then the organization behind it was obviously Sugar Labs. They left the MIT and then they started focusing on the software side of things. And then one thing that's, again, like I said, moving from code to community was the fact that when I got involved with the Sugar Project, funny enough, that was how I met Deb. We've been interacting for 10 plus years now, I think. More than 10 plus years. Sorry? 15 years. I was way, way younger then. Sugar Labs used to be part of an umbrella organization called the Software Freedom Conservancy. And most of the things I was doing, because I was an evangelist, I used to travel a lot. So that was one of the few interaction I get. So like, oh, I want to travel to this. And then I send my receipts. In fact, now I learned how to keep receipts thanks to the SFC, which was very interesting. But yeah, a whole lot of things I got to learn as a child. Because as of when I got that computer, I think I was about 8 years old. So it was the whole world around computing was so weird at that time. And that kind of what pushed me to think about having a community, which I'm going to be talking about later. But again, I moved from Sugar Labs to the open source community Africa, which was something that we created. But of course, there were things behind between Sugar Labs and Oscar, which I'm also going to be sharing. Yeah, I talked a little bit about the Sugar desktop environment. Um, you know, the Sugar desktop environment, like I said, was built with Python. Specifically, they chose Python because that was, I don't want to say easy. I know some Pythonistas don't like that word, but it was the easiest thing at that point, at least at that particular given point, that made sense to 8-year-olds like me. Because, please imagine that was written in Java. That would have been so interesting. Probably I'm in the banking sector by now doing something else. And then, of course, as time goes on, things like Raspberry Pi started spinning off, you know, and then they started having different flavors. If you use Fedora, there's a Fedora spin of Sugar. That is an alternative desktop. So basically replacing the GNOME GUI that you know, and then you use the Sugar desktop. Now, I don't think, okay, so you can't drag my code. That's good. It's too tiny. Cool. Great. Now, the one of the interesting thing I would say that was really, really key was how I got to know. I mean, I was using the OFC machine like I told you all, but then it didn't make a lot of sense until I started thinking about creating something. And what was I trying to do? As an African kid, we know we love our football, right? We used to play football. Don't people play football here? Is it because Ghanaians didn't go to the finals in CAF? What's what's happening? Do you all play football? Or oh, you people call it soccer here? Okay, okay, okay. I'm just I'm just trying to be, trying to be open. But yeah, I was trying to install, and just like I was explaining, right? The computer I knew was obviously Windows. A lot of applications at that point was obviously Windows based. Now, if you get your first computer as a child, what are the first thing you would do at that point? If you have the opportunity to have a laptop as a child, what is the three software you most likely install? Somebody? Games, right? Cool. That was what I did. I went to my uncle, then took a big flash drive, copied an entire asset of Winning 11. I don't know which of the series of the Winning 11 games. And I took it. I was so excited. I ran home, opened my laptop, plugged the flash drive. I was like, I'm going to play a lot of games today. Maybe even leave school. And then I was trying to run a Windows app on a Linux machine, and then I ran into errors. I was like, no, what is this? Trying to do a whole lot of things. And then out of frustration, I got, into the internet and I started making some research. Then I realized that, oh, the actual thing I was learning in school when they said Windows and others was actually a thing. I thought it was a weird looking Windows, to be fair. But that was when I discovered that it was a total different operating system. Then I was like, okay, as the sharp kid, what are the ways to run a Windows app in a Linux machine? And then I started scrambling the internet again. And interestingly, I think SFC was hosting the Wine project. Yeah. And then I saw the Wine project. So Wine is a Windows emulator that basically emulates Windows on your Mac, your Linux machine. And then I installed it, did some command line. I was writing command line on time, and I was like, it was looking very, like I felt like a hacker. Like that's my Kali friend here. I was writing a lot of command line. I was, oh, cool, cool. And then I ran again. Of course, typical Windows. DirectX wasn't working. I was like, okay. Then I gave up. I said, you know what? I'm not going to try anymore. But then, during that era, how many of you here remember the days of Flash players when your browser was depending on Flash? The annoying days. Exactly. There are a lot of OGs here. Cool. Great. Now, during those era, in the 70s, not 70s, please. During during those eras, that era rather, there was a game in school that my friends were playing. It was called Magical Freaky. I don't know if some of you know it. It was called Magical Freaky. It was a flash-based game on the browser or in the internet. And for us to be able to have access to that, we had to go to the cyber cafes or the internet house, depending on what you call it. And I was spending a whole lot of naira on the cafe as a child. Why? Money I would use to go and buy a better jollof rice. Right? You understand? Money I would have used to buy ice cream and do other things. I was using it on cafes to play games. Then I thought to myself, I was like, okay, if this is a flash based game, what happens when I do Control S? And then obviously I just tapped Control S. And guess what? The assets on that site downloaded into a file. And then I saw the flash, the actual game itself. I think it was what format was that? I think it was SWF format, if I'm not wrong. That was I think it was kind of shockwave based thing. Again, that's a long time ago, but yeah, it was a flash game, And then I was able to run that locally. But guess what? Guess who don't like Linux at that point? I'm not going to call the company. But the point was the thing that was running the Flash game on Windows definitely wasn't working on Linux. So it was very frustrating. Then again, I started making research. And then I discovered that there's a GNOME based app that runs like an alternative to the popular ones on the Windows side called the Gnash or the Nash player. So I tried it on the NOM side, it was working, but I wanted kids in my school running Sugar that was not running GNOME to be able to access the game and to make it wide open for people to use. Then again, started going to the internet, asking questions. How do I write a Python script? And guess what? Somebody was like, oh, you have to go and learn GNOME toolkit, go learn GTK. I was like, what's GTK? So basically, at the end of the day, I ended up writing this part of the code, which I call the OG code. I think this is like 10, 10, 11 years ago, this one. And then it started running. I was like, oh, great. I was using it in school. My friends were excited. We're sharing. I became the popular kid in school. You know that feeling now? That feeling. You went from like, I don't want to say grass to grace, but you know what I mean. I was very popular in school. Like, my principal was really good. But I knew something was missing. Then I went to the Sugar Labs community and said, hey, I did this thing. And they're like, oh, this is great. How about you open source and make that code public? I was like, open source, make that code public. I mean, I knew what open source was, but like, why am I open sourcing? Like, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. And that's when I discovered that, oh, there's over 2 million people, kids across the world that was using that computer. Then I created my first GitHub account, I believe 2013. And then I pushed the code to GitHub. And then myself and Walter, my mentor, were hacking on the code. And then we ended up making it and release it to the Sugar community. So just like any desktop environment or any operating system that there's an app store. The app store powers the application. So Sugar has its own custom-based app store. And then when I made it available, people started using it. Anyways, the reason why I shared this code is just so that if people that don't understand Python 3 downwards can look at this. But if you're dragging this code, is basically Copilot. So tag GitHub, not me. Um, yeah. So when I released the code to the public, I think a couple years, I believe. I think I was running the code locally in school for about a year or two, and then I made the code public. And then people were downloading on the Sugar App Store. They were tagging me on Facebook, like, oh, this was not working. I want this thing in my local language. I was like, that's how I discovered that maintenance job is not an easy one. People request for things every day. I mean, shout out to the maintainers. You are awesome. But then one cool thing there was that photo that you're seeing was from a deployment in Hong Kong. There are kids that were constantly hacking and building stuff on Windows, and they were like having a boot camp, and their task that week was to install my game using the command line. So when they did that, then the mentor took a photo and sent it to me. I was like, hey, thank you for building these things. And then obviously I was so excited. I went to Facebook, I posted it with my weird English. But anyways, I posted it. But then one thing I noticed was that the last time I checked, between when I was making that interaction, over 36,000 downloads. And this is not on your mobile computing. This is not your iOS. This is not your Windows or your Android. This was, again, very, very custom operating system with a custom app store. So you could tell how big that was at that point. I was like, you know what? Maybe I can compete with Mark Zuckerberg, and build something big, you know? That was the journey. That's how I got started. I was like, okay, I'm a builder. And then that's how I started taking taxes, fixing bugs, adding features on the Sugar side, doing a whole lot of things at that point. And then, of course, I, because I was still under 18, I was able to join something Google. There was an outreach program Google designed before Google. I think it's called Google Coding. It was specifically for pre-university students to come in and contribute to open source for a period of time. And then the winners of the program would go to Silicon Valley, that's Google HQ, and chill with some Googlers and the rest. It was really cool. So I was constantly, joining the program after year, improving my skill. And the year that I was so strong with Python, and I was like very, very big, and I was like, yes, this is the time to go to San Francisco. I turned 18. It was so weird. I was like, should I do my football age or something else? You could, that feeling was very, very interesting. But then someone told me that, oh, you can actually be a mentor. I was like, okay, mentor. Okay, on this program, great. Okay, cool. Then I became a mentor on the program. I started mentoring kids, you know, said kids as a kid, which is interesting. Started mentoring people like myself. They send input requests, I fix, review, and the rest. There were kids all over the world that were constantly. In fact, fun fact, most of the Sugar Labs developers at that point were under the age of 15. The contributors, they were so young. So moving from Google Coding, and then I graduated to Google Summer of Code. But of course, I was not in school. I kind of dropped out, you know, kind of dropped out. I'm emphasizing on that a little bit. Kind of. It was a mistake, but it happened twice. No, actually, more than twice. Three different universities, by the way. Trust me, I'm a very good kid, very very good kid. But anyways, I was doing Google Summer of Code because, of course, I was not in university, so I could mentor. So I was mentoring students from different universities. I think I had a couple folks from India, and there were like some folks in Europe. That was amazing. And then that year, remember that trip I wanted to do? That they were like, "Oh, Samson, you can go and represent the projects at the GSOC Mentor Summit." And that's how when I went to the Americas. Oh, great! I was so gingered. It was a very great feeling. I got to San Francisco, met with the Google team, had some conversation, met with my other colleagues from Sugar Labs, and then I discovered that there were a whole lot of people that I know that were supposed to be in that room. In fact, Google Summer of Code was the reason why Oscar, that's the Open Source Community Africa, exists in the first place. Because we wanted more representation at programs like the Mentor Summit and the like. So that's why Google Summer of Code is very, very special to me. And then that's how Oscar started. Like I said, moving from being a mentee to becoming a mentor. Very interesting journey. I said about the laptop, it was like over 2 million devices around the world. So that was kind of what I was working on. Now, the thing about Python and education that a lot of people don't understand is the fact that kids can pick up something and write beautiful software. I know these days it's not, I don't want to say it, what Gen Z people are doing now, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean, like the social apps and the likes. But back in the days, people used to write code. Kids used to write code. They used to write a whole lot of code. But then that's the beauty of Python because it's very readable. It's very easy to understand. And the reason why that is great was because the part of this program I was in was sponsored by Schlumberger in Nigeria. It gave me access to work with university students, secondary school students, with including the Nigeria Academy of Science. At that point, we're doing boot camps across Nigeria. We're able to support deployment in places like Ethiopia and Paraguay and Uruguay. It was really, really amazing, all because of how flexible Python is. And again, that's, in my opinion, that's one of the really best thing about it because of how you can be able to, a lot of people can be able to assess. I mean, I'm not really dragging JavaScript people, but you know what I mean, right? You know what I mean, Python people, right? Okay, there are JavaScript people here. I'm sorry, please. I'm very, very sorry. JavaScript is good. Now, to kind of like start wrapping up because I'm trying to wrap up my talk. Today, if you're trying to hack with sugar, because I would recommend if you're a Python person, you're trying to get your hands dirty, do a lot of things. I recommend you to, you know, go check out Sugar Labs. It's really great. It gives you the ability for you to take your Python skills and build apps. If you want that feeling, it's a really really great environment. You can start from running sugar on a stick. It's a concept when you want to run an operating system on a flash drive without crashing your hard drive. That's the way. And then of course, there's the web version of it for the JavaScript people, and then Raspberry Pi, and now called Flatpak, because we're trying to enable our activities, our applications to go to other Linux distributions thanks to Flatpak. Now, speaking about what I was saying, I came for the code because I was frustrated, and I stayed for the community. That is really really interesting. It's the journey of what an open source contributor typically has. That is a very powerful statement. Now, I stayed for the community because I wanted people like myself. I wanted to understand people like me, people, and also learn from people. I'm a huge fan from learning from people. In fact, the Oscar community right now is created with a lot of diverse set of skill sets. Every single day, I learn new things, and that was kind of what Oscar was representing. So the Open Source Community Africa, I always say, technically started in 2017, and now we're kind of really distributed across Africa. So if you're interested in, hosting a meetup, you can talk to me after this talk, and we can talk about that. This was the last open source festival we did in Lagos, 2023. Yeah. So that was myself, uh, Perry, Pisojeme, and the crowd were like, "Oh, okay." That's like what Bami was trying to do, doing selfie. So I always have an iconic photo like that. Every year I keep maintaining my steez. Yeah, anyways. Yeah, so that was the last Open Source Festival. Unfortunately, we couldn't do anyone this year. We're looking forward to the one next year. But that's the beauty about community, going to places like this and seeing tons of people sitting down and talking about open source and doing amazing work get me excited. Because sometimes I just want to listen to people rather than come and tell you people why open source and Python is great. Like I said, the Open Source Community Africa is sort of divided into two sides, the community and the project. We've been very focused on the community aspect of it by doing the chapter leads program and of course with the festival, right? And now we're working hard to push on more projects. If you look at the Octopus reports from Africa, you see that the African developers are really, really going strong. I think as of approximately Nigeria alone has close to 1 million developers registered on GitHub. So I think the second fastest growing right now is also Ghana, and there's Kenya, and there's like really, really amazing, amazing, group. And we just don't want people to be registering, we want people to be building stuff. Like a very close friend of mine built the Chakra UI library, Shegun. Like those are the things that we should be encouraging, keep building. And that's what we're trying to push. And of course, if you're not a software engineer, you happen to follow the friend to come and eat food or listen to talks, open source is diverse. That's the beauty about the open source community. You could be any of that. And if you can't find, I don't know, your title, you can create a role. And the reason why you can create a role is like, even in my day job, there are some times that my manager don't even know my job description. Like, what do you do again? I was like, okay, so I handle this and that and that. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. I want to do this one. It's almost giving you that ideology to kind of be reflective of how to understand your skill and how to give back to the community. Because while the software might be great, if the community around the software isn't that cool, trust me, it's not going to be awesome. And that's why, you know, the OGs, in my opinion, are the non code contributors. They are the ones that make things happen. Now I'm wrapping up my talk. Um, in a few days from now, Hacktoberfest is coming up again. Are you excited? What's happening now? Are you people not happy to do Oktoberfest again? Are you excited? Why is the energy low now? Oh wait, the thing I've been giving you people has touched your soul. It's touched you very, very well. Don't worry, I understand. I was let me not say what I want to say. But Oktoberfest, are you ready? How many of you are going to do Oktoberfest this year? Raise up your hand now, confidently. Okay, cool. Now, Hacktoberfest is basically a 1 month long, I like to call it a festival, where you go and look at multiple open source projects and then you start contributing to them, which is really, really great. And of course, in few days, if you visit the link, you can understand how you can contribute and, start hacking. Again, I'm actually looking forward to this. And the reason why I'm looking forward to this was because at Open Source Summit, because I'm lining up right now, um, my organization that I work for, we donated our entire code to the Linux Foundation, Pyro. So we're basically going to be we're going to be a participation organization on Oktoberfest. So if you're interested in DLT, blockchain based stuff, and you want to use your Python skills, we even have a very interesting Python SDK right now. So you can go there and look into it. And of course, you can take some photos. If you're interested to build your first smart contract with Python, you can do that. Again, that's kind of what we're trying to achieve. So, anyways, like I said, the whole point of doing open source is to kind of for you to be able to make impact, career growth, have great people skills, so you can be doing great MC work like Bami. That's the beauty of our community, and then paid opportunities like outreachy and other like things like Google Summer of Code and the likes. So, thank you very much.
Uh, I think we can do better with that clap. We can do better, right? So before I got the next speaker, I'm going to share testimony. Testimony time. Right. So my hair career started 2020, and you all will not believe it started after attending the first Oscar. Oscar 2020. So that shows the importance of what uh, these communities are doing. I randomly, again, maybe I would have been a banker like something, because I love the way they dress, especially in Nigeria, so corporate. So I always have the notion that I'm going to be a banker. After school, I studied computer science anyway, but the computer science we do in Nigeria, or probably in Africa, it's not the same as what they do over there. So the notion is different. So I had the idea of probably just gonna work in a bank. And then I got invited to the first Oscar before COVID hit. And I go there, I heard people talking about projects, and relatively they are so young. And the question I asked myself was like, what have you been doing with your life? Bro, what have you been doing with your life? And then I joined She Code Africa, and what they said, the rest is history. And here I am hosting PyCon Africa 2024 after 4 years. By the way, I started with Python as well. So I'm relatively in the space. Started with code and stayed for the community, because now I am a community manager. So, so yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Samson, for everything you all do in the Oscar team. I mean, for Oscar Fest, we are always so happy and excited to hear about the Oscar Festival every year, and also to volunteer. I mean, big time volunteer. Okay, so moving on. But before we move on, once again, a round of applause to Samson. Thank you for that wonderful keynote. Yeah, thank you so much. So next, we are moving forward to call our next speaker, Joe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah. So he's going to be talking about financial services with Python, Asynco, a Fido case study. Now, sorry, I'm trying to get his bio. internet. Okay. All right. So there I've been leading the backend engineering team at Fido for almost 3 years now. Before joining Fido, he has worked on various engineering projects that helped scale infrastructures across industries, gaining a passion for efficient system designs and building strong engineering teams. At Fido, he has applied all of these skills to something deeply meaningful, bringing financial inclusion to underserved communities across Africa. When he is not coding or optimizing systems, he is running or playing tennis. Activities that help him keep his mind agile as our systems need to be. So with a round of applause, please make welcome. Keep clapping till it gets to the podium. Keep clapping till it gets here. Keep clapping till it gets here. It's going to be talking about financial inclusion. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi.
Thank you very much. Need to open my slide. Windows machine. All right. So I guess the majority of here are students, and I gotta say that you guys are lucky to be knowing what Python is. Uh, Connecting to the previous talk, I had to do my degree in computer science entirely in Java. So I spent a lot of my time writing boilerplates to actually write the code that I want to do. All right. So first of all, this is my second time in Ghana with my amazing team here from Fido. Um, and first time doing some kind of keynote like that, at least in tech industry. So I'm very excited to be here. All right. So I'm going to. So we had a very inspiring talk about open source right now and how to grow up, and I'm going to take you like to the other side of the spectrum, talking a little bit about what's happening in the industry when you try to take Python and some cutting edge stuff in Python and try to apply it to some higher scale systems. Um, I'll be telling you the journey of how we built Python, why we chose um, Python and specifically async IO as our like I don't know if we can call it framework or guideline or mental model to build our system and the pitfalls we fell into when hitting a bigger scale and the way we manage it. All right. So, yeah. So my name is Dora Negbi. I'm leading the engineering group in Fido. I actually work in Fido for almost 3 years. Um, build, Being one of the first backend engineers, building it pretty much from scratch. Um, Before Fido, I was working in a amazing company called Spark Beyond for the machine learning people in here. So we were building systems for data scientists. We did auto machine learning back in the day before we had such strong tools like OpenAI. Uh, but it was something that helped me build up and understand how to build bigger systems. So what I'm going to do today, first of all, I'm going to introduce Fido. I do assume that people from Ghana and maybe Uganda are a little bit familiar with Fido. Those are the countries we operate in. Um, I'll talk a little bit of what is our challenges in Fido and why we chose Async IO as our leading framework. I'll do a short recap because I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with Async IO, and then we'll see the trade-off. So some of here are students, some of here have a lot of experience. We all know that in software engineering, there's a trade-off. There's a trade-off in any decision you make, especially when it comes to architecture. Um, so I'll present what are the pitfalls we fell down into and how did we solve them because of the journey we chose, of the decision of going with Async IO. So a little bit about Fido. So this is our mission statement, which we all very connect to. In FIDO, we empower individuals and entrepreneurs to capture opportunities in Africa. So basically, in FIDO, we give access to credit for mainly unbanked clients. And these unbanked can be teachers, nurses, social workers, and also entrepreneur. When you go in the street in here, you can see the markets. There is tons of entrepreneurs there trying to build up a business, but they don't have access to credit. We give them the opportunity to do it with no collateral. It's all digital. It's all backed by our proprietary risk models. We have this concept called FIDO score. We actually let the client improve his FIDO score by taking some actions and give them access to credit. And we know that credit gives opportunities. For example, when I did my computer science degree, I had to take some credit for it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about FIDO and technology. So 3 years ago, I was sitting with my CTO. We came back from we were we came together from the previous company from Spark Beyond, and we spoke about how are we going to build a backend system in Fido. Specifically, how are we going to scale it? So Fido was already operating in Ghana, but our goal right now is to expand to multiple countries. We are now growing in Uganda, and we plan to expand in 2025 to at least 2 or 3 more African countries. So, okay, we said, what are we going to do? So, first of all, we had a very clear decision of picking Python because we came from a company that was programming in Scala. So, I don't know if any of you tried to hire an employee in Scala. There's none. They are not in the field. Like, we couldn't find them. It was very hard. And we knew that Python is growing, the community is big, and we will have a lot better chance of capturing a lot of talent, young talent. So we decided, okay, our application is basically going to do a lot of IO. There's a lot of transaction going on, right? We have databases, for example, MongoDB, which we store the user information and user states and so on. We are a startup, so we are going to move fast. And to move fast, you want to consume services in the cloud. So we use Amazon Web Services, AWS, as our provider. And they have like tons of services which you engage using IO. We are doing banking, right? So we have a core banking system. It's called Mambo. It's a pretty big company. We interact with them using IO, HTTP request and response, and many, many others. It's not the whole story, right? We do machine learning. There is some CPU intensive stuff. There are if there's data engineers in here, that we do ETLs to take the high volumes of data and chew it somewhere and to make insights out of it. But those things are not done like real time in the backend system. They can be done, they can be offloaded to some process that is doing it behind the scene. But what we're talking here is providing a backend for the mobile applications. So it needs to be fast, responsive. In Africa, we know there's going to be a challenge with internet. So we want to have a pretty efficient one. So, okay, given these characteristics, we're thinking of going async. So a little bit of silly example of what is async in real life. Um, so OpenAI, I'm going to mention them twice in the lecture. So thanks that for people like me that don't know how to draw nicely, I can use DALI to generate amazing pictures to emphasize a concept. So we can think of this chef who is doing his synchronous cooking. So he needs to do multiple things. He needs to cook the steak, he needs to cut vegetables, he needs to clean up after him, he needs to make up the table, and he needs to serve the steak. He can do it one thing at a time. That's synchronous, meaning that while he's cooking the steak, he's looking at the steak, he's waiting for the steak to be cooked. Then he's on to his next task. He's doing it linearly, one task at a time. The asynchronous chef says, okay, the steak is cooking. If I want it medium, I'll do 3 minutes each side, depends on the steak. And in the meantime, I can go cut vegetables. I'm done with the vegetables. I can flip the steak. Oh, that's not mine. That's the slide you missed from earlier. By the way, my slide is still here. So the asynchronous chef, while he's flipping the steak, he can go make the table. So that's the difference between having an async chef. You need to understand, async is not doing stuff in parallel. I didn't say there are multiple chefs. There is one chef that while the steak is cooking, is going to do something else. The cooking is happening. Someone is doing the work, but not on his CPU. He released the CPU and he went to do something else. So that's async IO in real life, or async in real life. So soon we'll have my slide, I guess, coming back. So I'll give a recap of how async IO is working. So imagine that we have a mobile application. The mobile application is interacting with our backend system. Our backend system is it's working. So our backend system is all right. So our backend system is basically a fast API server. We have microservices. There are, oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. So I drew this. By the way, this is not AI generated. I can build system faster than drawing this. This took at least a day of work. Okay, so we have this mobile client is interacting with the servers. So you can imagine we have this server. It's a few processes of Python running on some machine that AWS is hosting, and it's a fast API server. We all love fast API, their syntax, their um, integration with Pydantic, which is awesome. And these processes, they do all kind of stuff. They talk to databases, they consume messages from some queue, they put some message in some queue, they push notification to some mobile client, they save something on a storage, they do all kind of IO. But when we zoom in into one of these process, we actually discover there's only one thread running there, the main thread. In our case, it's the UVCon thread, which is the web server thread. And the concept behind it is that we're going to use async IO, like our chef, to make sure that every time something is cooking, for example, there is some request going to AWS services, the server can do other stuff and just come back and gather the response once it's ready. So all this magic is actually managed by Python. Python introduces in their standard library async IO, which can be used, and they give us the capability of an event loop. So an event loop is, you can dive into the code. It's just that it's a class, and this class has many things. It has a queue, and it has a scheduler, and it has a bunch of abilities. But basically, it's, you can imagine that it's mimicking what the operating system does in terms of context switching. It just manages it for you in the application level, which is much faster, right? It means that the application is running all the time on the CPU, a single thread, and the application itself just pauses an execution of some function and go does something else. So maybe we should see some code to understand what I'm talking about. So async IO, we can take a look at on the upper right side. This is what I call the single thread mental model. So the nice thing about async is that you don't need to think. And if anyone ever did like parallel programming, threading, multiprocessing, you try to think, wait, this code might be running like 5 times and I need to think how they synchronize. Here we have this like linear simple example of two function calls. One of them is validating some payment method. So when a user adds a payment method to our system, is Momo wallet, mobile money wallet, we need to verify that it's his. We do some checks. These checks require some request to some vendor, to some remote server. While this validation is happening, The magic behind the await keyboard, the await keyword, it's that it's actually scheduling this, what we call in Python, coroutine on the event loop, and it's releasing the thread. Meaning that this function will pause the execution while it's waiting for the response and go do something else, like reading from receiving another request, reading from some database, and so on. When it's back, it will resume the execution of the function exactly where it left off. So for the programmer, it lets think linearly. So you, and again, you do validate pin code. The next thing, the next function called there is something called publish event, uh, where you just, I don't know, throw some analytical event or something. But these things, they do happen one after the other. But Python takes care that it will be scheduled on the event loop, one after the other. They will be executed in order, and Python takes care for you of everything. All right. How many people in here, till they fix my slide, are familiar with async IO? All right. So about 20% of the audience. So this concept, they look more scary than they actually are, um, but they do have their downside that we need to at least be aware of. Thank you. Okay, so other than the single thread model, the next thing I want to present is that in async IO, you can actually perform stuff concurrently. So you can take three functions that are asynchronous and say, okay, Python, please take these three functions, schedule them on the event loop, and when they're back, put them back in three variables. This is done by something called async IO gather. Basically, it works when you have like three functions that are independent of the input is not dependent of one another, and you can just call the three of them. Yes. So what the story I just told you, you can see in the bottom example. So in here, by the way, I don't know if you know, in Fido, we don't only do credit, we also do stuff like top ups. So here an example of, okay, I need to do like three queries to three different systems to get something about a top up, some transaction. So I can use async IO to schedule the three coroutines on the event loop to make sure they execute. And when they go back, they populate the parameters. So it's also simple to perform concurrent tasks. Note that I'm saying concurrent and not parallel. It's important to understand that they are context switching between them. They're not done at the same time. There's only one thread being executed. How do I know? Because I will introduce the tool of profiling. Okay, I see people are scared from the flame graph that is coming up. This is a very strong tool. It's scary at first. I learned it from some lecture, from some keynote, and I am using it quite often. So what is a flame graph? This like scary thing. A flame graph is a profiling tool, let you know what's really happening behind the scene. Um, every row, it's called a frame. It's a function, and the frame width is the amount of time that it spent on the CPU. So for example, you can see the pink run endpoint function in here. This is the function that Fast API executes when you get a request. So you can see that the server spends a lot of time handling requests, sending OTPs, doing some stuff. But if we go all the way up, there's a unicorn. It's all running on the main thread. It's all running as part of the server. So I have one thread on the CPU running all the time and just context switching. So this context switching that you see in here that's happening between various functions is managed by Python, which is very strong to have the application doing all that work for you. Okay, but what I already implied for that in the beginning, like there must be a trade-off, right? It can't be that good. Else not only 20% would have known what or used async IO, right? It would have been the thing that you do. But why not? So there is a theorem from machine learning or computing. It's called the no free lunch theorem. I learned it in the context of machine learning, but you can take it to anything in engineering when, like the quote says, that any two optimization algorithms are equivalent average across all possible problems. In machine learning, usually we refer to it, so you have a model. If you average all the models on all inputs, thank you. If you average all the models on all inputs, they are all the same. There's no perfect model except like ChatGPT, of course, which is like something else. Breaks the theorem. Uh, okay, so what is the gotcha here? When you do async, everything must be async. And that sounds simple, but it's not really. It's not only that, okay, so we're good developers, we'll just put async before every function call, we'll do await before every function call, and we'll be fine. It doesn't work like that. First of all, if your code is not IO bound, it will just not help you. So let's say I have this function that has a for loop that is doing some multiplication. It doesn't matter that I'll pause the execution, do something else, I get back. Think of it like cutting the vegetables, right? I need to cut the vegetables. It's a work that I need to do on my CPU. It's not the same as doing a request and letting the amazing internet do the job. Because once the packets are going over the internet, you can go do other stuff. You don't need to really like look at the buffer and wait for the packet to come back. You can go do something else and then go back. Um, so, okay, we're not doing CPU intensive stuff, at least in the backend in Fido. All right, we can just do everything with IO. But we're a startup. We're going to use third parties. Async IO is not like there from the beginning of Python. Um, there is a lot of legacy code that just don't support it. And also code from third-party vendors, from big companies even, that don't support async IO because it's a decision. It's not like you have a synchronous code, you can just make it asynchronous and that's it. No, you need to maintain it. And guys from here from the open source community will tell you that maintaining is hard. So what do you do if a third party doesn't support async IO? I'm going to present two solutions, but there will be a surprise on the second one. All right. So I said we're using the cloud. We're using AWS, very common. AWS, they have their own SDK, their own library to engage with them in Python. It's called Bot-of-Free. If anyone ever worked with Python and AWS, they know what Bot-of-Free is. Bot-of-Free is amazing. It has all the capabilities except one thing. It's synchronous. Actually, if you ask me why, I assume that they don't have really an intention to make it async because they will tell you, listen, you want to run something, use our Lambda, our AWS serverless service. We will make sure it will run fast. But if your architecture it doesn't look like that, you don't want to do it, you want to go async, they don't support it right off the bat. So what does it really mean? So they have this service called S3. S3 is it's simple storage service. It's like a file system on the cloud. And we do list objects in a bucket, which pretty much like it's an ls command, right? It's a list of files in a directory. This is doing an HTTP request. It's using requests library behind the scene. Request, the standard library for HTTP, is synchronous. It's actually not standard. I was lying. You need to install it. And what happens is that until this code finishes, the thread waits. Nothing else can be done. It doesn't matter if you get another request. Doesn't matter. It's waiting until it's done, and then it's moving to the second line. So the first approach when you encounter this is to try to look over the open source community if there's an alternative library. In this case, there is. there is AIO Boto free and AIO, which is built over AIO Boto core, and we can see the syntax right there, which is a bit more, it's a bit more indented, but it's async. So it's actually very connected to the previous lecture talking about open source. So the previous lecture talked about donating your code to open source. I will be talking about the perspective of consuming open source code, which is something that when you take your app out there, not all the open source is safe for use or well maintained. So what are the rule of thumbs when using an open source library? So first of all, must be well maintained. So how do you know that? So few rule of thumbs is to take a look at the amount of stars and forks on GitHub. You can also look at the pip installs, like how many installs they have over time to see how much it's used. Another thing is, when was the last commit? When was the last issue resolved or pull request merged? So we want to make sure that if we, for example, have some edge case that is really important for our business and we need them to solve it, well, there are two options. You can try yourself to solve it by donating code, which is always good. Second is maybe you have strong maintainers that will just help you do it rather fast. Another thing is sometimes license is important. So we see they have Apache 2 license. Um, Another thing is compatibility. So AWS, they have over 1,000 services. Does this support all the APIs? Maybe you have a niche use cases. So there are going to be talks about LLMs, right? And there are new services about popping up about LLMs. Does this support it? Need to check. So it's not a straightforward decision to go with a third party that is not official. You want to look maybe at benchmarks, maybe it's too slow for you. Um, but in this case, it's actually a very good alternative. Um, and you can do when you find something like that because it solves a lot of your problem. Okay. But what happens if you have a third party, you have some code you need to use, but it's synchronous and there's no alternative? So I would do what every software engineer these days would do in that situation. I would go to ChatGPT and ask him, what the hell can I do? Okay, so at least it's GPT-4, so maybe we'll have some wisdom for me. So dear chat, I have a synchronous function in Python that performs blocking IO operation. I want to make it asynchronous. Can you help me? Yes, of course. They're always polite. Yes, of course. I can help you. There is a function called running executor, which is provided by async IO. Wow. Standard library gives you the ability to migrate a synchronous function into an asynchronous. Let's see how it looks. So this is a pretty silly example, but it's just to emphasize. So I have a function which is not asynchronous at the top. You see there is a definition for the function without the async before that. If it was async, it would have been like the main function with the async. Uh, it doesn't mean that it's async if you wrote async, but it's the minimum you need to do. Um, you see time.sleep. Time.sleep is it's a synchronous function. So just in your brains, replace this with your favorite IO request, right? It's saving something to to the database. It's getting something from some remote server. I don't know. It's doing some IO request. What we can do is we can get the event loop that we saw previously, and we can say to the event loop, listen, run the blocking task on the event loop on the with this executor. I'll touch in a bit what this executor is with the parameter free. The free there is going into the seconds. So basically, I just took the blocking task and made it async. Magic. So simple. Why did I even need the alternative libraries? So the hint here is the thread pool executor, which looks very innocent, but in scale, it it there's surprises. So first of all, sorry, back to the flame graph, but you have to use it to understand what's going on. I run half the time of the CPU doing threading. So I used to have only one frame having everything below it, and now I spend half my time doing threading. I was telling you a story that we will do async IO. We will run everything on the main thread. It's all beautiful. But actually, what Python is doing, which is quite smart, it's taking the synchronous function. It's it depends on the executor you provide, right? Here, there is a parameter here in run an executor. You can provide either a thread pool executor, a process pool of executor. You can pass nothing, which will just spawn a thread pool executor inside the code. And it will take that code, spawn a thread, and it will wrap it with a thing called future, which is just like a compatibility API between threads and async IO. And it will let you treat this code like it's async, but behind the scene, it's running on a thread. Okay, why do I care? So I care because going back to the architecture, to the conversation a few years ago of creating feeder and saying, okay, we're going to have a lot of requests coming in, request response, we'll just do async. But now I'm spawning threads like crazy for every async operation. So what happened? So I'm not sure what is the curriculum here in computer science of if you guys did operation system. There is this phenomenon called trashing. It's not trashing, it's trashing. Trashing comes from the world of operating system and memory management when there's many page faults, something that you learn in the days. Here I'm talking about the fact, so imagine that you have tons of threads open. Every request is spawning 10 threads, and you just have your machine running tons of threads that has very short thing to do, like doing some IO, but it's not getting CPU time, right? We're talking about very high scale systems. When you spawn so many threads and you don't control what you actually do, you just keep context switching between them. And you have this phenomenon of high memory, low CPU. So threads, they take memory, right? They're code in execution. So they take memory, and but if you don't allocate them on the CPU and all you do is just context switching, you'll see a very low CPU usage but very high memory usage, and that's a signal of trashing. By the way, it's very hard to identify that. It took us time to research and understand what's really going on behind the system. It all started with the app being slow. So we're talking about impact, right? People are trying to get access to credit and they can't. The app is not moving because of this run and executor thing. All right. So another thing is how do you know how many threads you want to have? So if I go back, the threadboard executor can receive a parameter. So you can decide that your entire process will have one threadboard executor, and you can decide the amount of threads that you put into it. So you think, okay, there's probably a magic number, right? The default number is like 2 times the CPU plus 1 or something like that. But the answer is no. That's why you need to do benchmarking. So you do benchmarking in order to identify it. How many, in your use case, will actually be in the sweet spot of having a good performance. And maybe uh, the biggest lesson for me and for my team is that so there is this sentence from the QA world that something is not working until you tested it. And I would say that something doesn't work in scale until you tested it in scale. So this all the story I told you, it worked very well on our local machines and dev and staging environments. But once we hit scale, it's a different story. And it's important to understand that once you deliver app for so many people, we have more than 1 million customers in Fido. You can't allow yourself to not understand there are going to be times where they're going to bash your servers, and you need to understand how your servers are going to react using async IO. So this is maybe the biggest lessons we have learned of how to do testing in scale. So I'm going to wrap up my talk. Um, let's see what we covered. So first of all, I wanted to share a little bit of Fido's experience with using async IO. Uh, I know it's common in the industry, but people are a bit like intimidated by it. But I'm in love with async IO. I think async IO is amazing. It's very easy to catch up. And we had some JavaScript joke. I'll tell you that I recruited a developer that does JavaScript. The portability is so easy. Like it's giving this, I wouldn't say universal language, but it's the same way of thinking of the concept of the problem you're solving. So async IO gives an opportunity for us to lure in JavaScript developers, Node.js ones. Flame graphs, amazing tool. I was presenting, by the way, like Datadog flame graphs, um, very strong. And the problem that we face that all the code must be async. How do you achieve it, especially when you use third-party code? Thank you, everybody. I want to say that we're expanding in Ghana. So we have a booth out there, and we have 4 open positions. We have an amazing R&D center in Ghana. It's important for us to grow in Africa. And that's it. Come and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, a round of applause for Dor. Thank you so much. Okay, so before we move to the next session, how many of us starts writing our first line of code in Python this year? You start writing your first line of code this year. This year. Nobody? So everybody here is an OG. Oh, just few of us. Okay. Okay. So we have OGs. So that means everything is said about, events, scheduling, and skills. You all understand it. Yeah? I'm not getting any response. Okay. Okay, cool, 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 cool then. So please, you can talk to him afterwards. You can go to their booths and get to understand what Fido is about and whatnot. So right now we have a little bit of break before we go into our breakout session. We have a breakout session coming up next. But before then, we have break. And for our break, we want to do a little game, and I need volunteers. We are too cold. Like, we are chilled. We are late. I know there is a lot of AC in the room. You're supposed to be chilling, yeah? But then, let's have some feels. Okay, so I need some volunteers. And if you didn't come, how? I'm going to come to you. If Mohammed did not go meet the mountain will go meet Mohammed. So, shall we? Do we have volunteers? I need about 5 persons. Come outside, or I come and meet you. I need volunteers, please. What? No, they should come upstairs. They can come upstairs. They can stay here, wherever. Oh, you're not done. Just come first. Come. I need volunteers, please. Oh, yeah. All right. Please encourage them. Encourage them. I need volunteers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wow. This is interesting. We've got a lot of people already. Okay, so how many of us have heard this game? I'm talking, when you say I'm talking open source, I'm talking free, right? Do we all know this game? Words association, right? I'm going to give you a word, and you're going to give me uh 5 words that are associated to that word in 15 seconds. Yeah. So 5 people is Spiral, come on, don't be shy. Still. Please encourage them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't be shy. So do you get the idea of the game? So I'll give you a word, and you're going to give me 5 words that are associated with that word. It must be correct. We don't want to be going on Google to check if that word is associated or not. Okay, it must be correct. So like I said, for example, I said open source. You talk about free, you talk about community, you talk about I don't know. Software. Yeah, you talk about design, it's associated to it. You talk about anyways, contribution. Yeah? Yeah. But you do it in 15 seconds. So I'm going to set my timer, give you the word, and set them. Please, can we have another mic, please? Hello. No, nobody is using phone. Nobody is using phone. Are we ready? No. Stay there. Do you have the mic? Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, going first.
Okay.
Okay, so are you ready?
Give me a minute.
You need to breathe.
Okay. All right. Shoot.
Okay, so your first word, design.
Community, research, design, develop, developers,
No.
program.
Okay, nah, bruh, nah.
Wasn't close.
Your name is creativity, innovation. Let's.
Oh, or anything related to design. That was I was following like the example you gave.
Third word.
Associated words. Oh, let me try again. Again.
No, the audience said no.
Oh, you said no.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
let's move to the next person.
Sure.
Okay, okay. Are we ready?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
So give me 5 words that are associated with my timer.
ChatGPT.
No, let's go to timer. Um, okay, 5 seconds, 15 seconds. Actually, we're doing 15 seconds. Okay, so you're giving me 5 words that are associated with software engineering.
Computer science. So computer science contribution, ChatGPT, oh,
Bro,
VS Code, VS Code, Python, JavaScript,
it's,
JavaScript, Mark Zuckerberg.
it's okay. All right. We allow you. We allow you. We allow you. Okay. A round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's go to the next person.
Should be easy.
It should be easy.
Yes.
Okay. What's associated to community?
Community, open source, development, management, mm, engagement, research.
Time up. Time up. Time up. Time up. Please clap for him. Clap for him. Engagement. Okay. All right. So to you, give me 5 words associated to creativity.
Design, events, Figma, graphics, we art.
Did you say act?
Yes,
What's the
ART, art.
Oh, heart. Yeah, 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 yeah. Please, please, please. Okay, okay, okay. She mentioned correct, complete 5. All right, so we are going to the next person. Uh, okay. So, give me 5 words. Sorry. I'm trying to get this time. Okay. 5 words associated to conference.
People, conference room, microphone, a panelist, and black notes.
Okay. We'll give it to you. So now, who are the people living here? He is definitely living, yeah? Thank you. Thanks for coming. What about him? He's staying. He's staying too. He's leaving. I'm confused. Okay. All right. We are moving on to the next one. Okay. Uh, what? We should start there. Okay. All right. Let's go.
Lady first, though.
Okay. So the next word, words associated to API.
API. Okay. So JavaScript, computer engineering. Let me see. Ah,
Thank you. You can have your. Thank you. All right. Yeah, give it a shot.
API, SDK,
Mhm.
mm, fast API, server, response time, status code.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So give me words associated to empowerment.
To
Empowerment.
women, giveaway, empowerment programs, fund programs, loans.
Okay. Give me words associated with association, organization.
Organization, people, events, management, programs, mentoring, networking.
Oh, so we have our winners. These are our winners. Money has something for you. Where is money? I can't find him. But money has something for you. So we'll call. What's your name again, please?
Samira Amadou from Togo.
Ikram Babsawa from Nigeria.
Dixon Agbemazi representing Ghana.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we are moving forward now. Moving on to the next session, and the the next session is a breakout session. Like I said, we have one in Accra, Ghana here. I mean Accra Hall here, and the other one in Victoria Hall, downstairs. So David is going to be here, and David is going to be talking about. Okay. Oh, the thing is all mixed up. All right, David is talking about Py Pydantic, your one-stop shop to data validation in Python. And then we have Kelechi, who is going to be talking about building intelligent robots with Python, ROS, and machine learning. She's going to be having it in Victoria Hall downstairs. And the your one-stop shop to data validation in Python will be happening here. So if you sign up for the building intelligent robots with Python, please you can make your way to the Victoria Hall right now. We have someone there to moderate that session as well. So you can move to the Victoria Hall right now. And for this session, we have your one-stop shop to data validation, which is going to be by David Assam. So please gently and quickly make your way to the Pretoria Hall. If you are for the building intelligent robots with Python Rust, and machine learning. So if you are for building intelligent robots with Python, Rust, and machine learning, please move to the Pictorial Hall. Or if you're for your one-stop shop to data validation in Python, you can remain in this hall. And please, if you are for the Accra hall, please move forward. Thank you. Move forward. Please, you can move forward. Thank you. If you are for David, move forward. Alright. Once again, if you are for David's session, please move forward. Thank you. So David is a software engineer. He's an experienced and dynamic software engineer with many years of experience in across full stack engineering and machine learning. His professional background spans several domains, including fintech, e-commerce, insurance, and health tech, where he has constantly demonstrated his ability to solve complex problems and enhance business operation. Please, a round of applause. With a round of applause, make welcome David. Is going to be talking about Pydan- Pydantic, Pydantic, your one-stop shop to data validation in Python. Please, a round of applause. Thank you.
Is it supposed to? I Hello. You look sad. Why are you sad? We are alive. Be happy. Be happy. All right. My name is David. I'm an engineer. Um, Today, I want to help all of us understand Pydantic, which is a data validation library in Python. Um, so my understanding is that almost all of us are beginners, so we are not going to go into too much technical details. So a little bit about myself. So I'm a software engineer, spoken at many